From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Beres.
And thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Beres here with you on a Tuesday. And an interesting topic this morning. You know, one way or the other, we've seen plenty of news stories of late on what's happening with young people, social media. You know, there's TikTok out there. You know, Facebook's all for us older folks. There aren't any young people on that, but all different types of areas and even private chat rooms, things like this that pop up. How it evolves and what impact it has on teens. Some of the news stories we do, of course, can be everything from some of those crazy TikTok challenges and how they get out of hand to, you know, oftentimes where law enforcement will make arrests through some of these social media sites of pedophiles trying to target teens. All levels. And throughout all this, I think we've come to the conclusion that parents need to at least try to be a little bit aware of what their young people are being exposed to, what they're looking at. I don't mean spying on them. I mean, with my own son, we would talk about it. And of course, he's older now, and there's so much more out there that I think he would have had to choose from if he was a young person now. We're going to get into all of that today. We can take some phone calls from you as well as we get into it. With some of the very latest research, what's out there and why there's concern about it, and what can be done about it, including an app that's been developed by researchers at Vanderbilt that I think could help families manage online access with their kids and what they're looking at. So we have two of the folks involved with all this that know much more about it than I do. Thank you both for coming on this morning. All right, we have with us Pamela Wisniewski. She is a Vanderbilt professor. It's nice to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And Mamtaj, Akter, you are a Vanderbilt computer science graduate student. Yes. You're behind this app we're going to talk about and can give us some info on that. But I guess you could start, Pam, maybe with the idea of why we need an app, and I guess that's the big picture of what's going on. Lay it out there. I tried to. I know you can do it better for me, but what do we see out there right now? What's the big concern?
Sure. So what we do in our research lab at Vanderbilt, the Socio-Technical Interaction Research Lab, is that we do a lot of research on adolescent online safety, and we take more of a resilience-based approach, acknowledging that most youth have access to technology. In some cases, it's mandatory for school.
Sure.
Right? So we need to be proactive in ways that we teach youth how to engage with technology in a healthy way.
All right. The problem is, too, by the way, a lot of the stuff, having professors like you is important, because I can tell you right now, my son knows about things that are not even on my radar. And I guarantee you there's a lot of parents out there, they don't know what's out there right now. Their kids do. They're all in it. They know. But parents don't.
Exactly. We've done research that shows that most parents don't know what their kids are doing online. And it's hard for them to start those conversations. And some of the ways or strategies to do this is to read up on some of the latest research. For instance, in our lab, we've been studying things like how youth are exposed to self-harm content online, or how they get involved into sticky situations, even including sextortion. And so just writing that fine line between not going to a level of moral panic, but also not being naive about some of the things that our youth are experiencing online.
Okay. And yeah, some of those, the sextortion, which we've done news stories on, and the like. Is it, I guess, okay, they're being approached. How does it work? As I've seen in some of the sextortion cases, there are individuals posing as people that they aren't, and they're convincing these naive young kids of one thing or another to send and share obscene photographs, things like this. Now, whether it's social media or otherwise, teens are young and impressionable, but shouldn't they know better?
Well, do all adults know better?
No, well, no.
So, I mean, adolescence is a unique developmental stage where youth are trying to seek out new social connections. And some of the youth who are online seeking that attention and love might be the ones who don't get that from home. And so those are the youth who are most vulnerable. At the same time, we think that we fall in love and we trust somebody, right? And we and then it might be a stranger, right? Like right now, there's a blur between a stranger or somebody you met online versus a friend. Right? And so what happens is a youth might share an image, but then because of that, they can get blackmailed. And so it's important for parents to understand what platforms their youth are using to engage with other people online.
Okay, meaning so that you can monitor and know whether it's a platform where the child might become susceptible to what you're talking about? We know about what platforms where we have some of these scumbags doing this?
Oh, I think there's scumbags everywhere.
Okay, so what do? I guess all you have to, well, okay, all I know is, like, for instance, my son back in the day, and he still does now, would play video games at home. And for a long time, I didn't even realize, well, who are you playing with sometimes? He would often have friends come to play with him, but other times he'd be playing on his own. I go, now, who are you playing with? Well, I'm playing with some guy in Argentina. And so, because they can all go online and share it. And that's when I realized, oh, wow, truly, I was clueless. And I'm like, okay, well, Huey, you know, if anyone starts trying to get personal with you, you know not to even answer. And I don't care what they say they are, they're lying. Okay, so you just understand, you don't know who that person is. And we try to tell him all this, and I think the message got through. We never, knock on wood, had any problems with him. But that's part of the issue there, right? I mean, they're playing and dealing with people. I tell him that. What else can you do besides that?
Right. Well, I think reframing the conversation just a little bit, because I think as adults we take more of a fear-based approach of like trying to scare the life out of them to make sure that they comply.
Sometimes that can be quite effective.
It can.
Scare the crap out of them.
At the same time, it can also lead to the effect of going in one ear and out the other. So like, for instance, even just something as simple as your teen going to the mall by themselves for the first time. If you tell them, don't talk to strangers at all, they might think, okay, that's just not practical because there's store clerks, there's people out there.
Right.
So giving them some practical advice of how to talk to strangers in a more safe manner. So for instance, okay, if you're in the food court and you're talking to somebody, that might be okay because it's a public location. However, don't take anything from anybody and surely don't ingest it, right? And so just changing the conversation a little bit, instead of saying, don't talk to any strangers online, give them more practical advice like, well, you might have a friendly conversation, but don't reveal any personally identifiable information. For instance, what school you go to, or your street address, or some of that information that can make you physically trackable.
Okay, so Mamtaj, how will this app help? What does the app do?
So this app actually allows parents or the whole family members to review one another's apps installed. So that's how parents can monitor what are the apps installed on teens' phones.
So how does it work then? Like, for instance, I would download your app onto my phone. It also has to be on my son's phone.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and he'll know about it, and I'll say, look, this is just an app, so what do I tell him? I mean, he's like, well, Dad, I don't want you seeing what I'm doing. What do I tell him?
So here's the thing, our app also allows users to have some privacy on the app usage.
Okay.
So for example, you're the dad, so you definitely want to hide some of your apps that, I mean, from your kids.
So it goes both ways. Maybe if I don't want my son getting access to, say, my bank account or something like that.
Yes, exactly. So it goes both ways.
Okay. So there are limits that you can place on what access is, but does that mean that my son could place limits on things I want to see that maybe I need to see?
To kind of give a better idea of what this app particularly does is, it's an app that you can download on your phone so that you can co-monitor each other. So for instance, what apps are installed on the device and the privacy permissions granted to those apps.
And this is, okay, we've got some video showing here. All right, talk about that. Then this is the app?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Yes.
What's it called?
Co-ops, which is short for like community oversight for privacy and security.
It's a good name. Okay, so that's it. So basically, the app will allow me to see all the apps that my son has downloaded onto his phone?
Yes.
And is that basically it? It just, so every time he adds a new one, I can look and I can see what apps came down.
Exactly.
Now, he can't shield me from seeing that?
Yes, he can.
He can. So you have to reach out.
He can hide some of his apps.
So then, well, if you can do that, what's the point of the app?
Well, I think the point is to build that trust relationship.
Okay, so you say, let's have an agreement here. By the way, son, I can look at yours, but you can look at mine too.
Right.
All right?
Yeah,
and let's be fair about this and understand why I'm doing it. So then if a parent sees something, give me an example of an app. Do you have children?
I do.
Okay, so if you saw an app show up on your child's phone, what's one that would make you say, okay, I gotta check this out?
Well, for instance, there's sneaky apps out there, like a calculator app that's used to be able to hide images and other things that you don't want your parent to see. And so it might seem innocuous at first, but if you see your child installing the calculator app or some other apps, like just being able to start that conversation. And this app also goes to the level of security and privacy, meaning that, for instance, if you download a new app and it's sharing your location permission, that means that app can track where you're physically at. And so being able to have that level of conversation with your kids and them actually being able to have that with you, because to some extent our youth are more tech savvy than we are.
Oh yeah.
And by giving them that level of respect, saying like, hey, you know, do you think this app is safe for me to download? It can really help start that conversation.
Interesting. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we can take some calls. I'd be curious if anyone out there is dealing with something like that with their youth, or if you're into some of these websites and you've encountered some of the issues we're talking about. I'd love to hear from you, or if you have a question about this app. We're going to get a lot more into this, and I just want to learn more about what's out there. If nothing more, if there's some young people watching, they go, boy, Nick's dumb. He doesn't know about all this. But I'm going to put it to them to lay out some of these. I want to know more about the calculator app. What is that? I think it's the calculator to add things up. You think it's something else. All right, we'll talk about that and much more with our guest from Vanderbilt right after this.